One of the most valuable and important topics that Ra talked about in the material was the idea of a system of energy centers in our bodies. These have been called by other philosophies chakras, and Ra was really willing to work with the term chakra, but they preferred the term energy center. But they're essentially the same thing, and different spiritual philosophies and different spiritual texts have different perspectives and takes on these chakras or energy centers. So Ra's is their own perspective, and it has its own type of value that is primarily psychological or developmental in nature. It helps us understand our process of spiritual and consciousness evolution. So there are 7 energy centers according to Ra, starting with the root chakra, the red ray energy center, as Ra says, which they said was located at the base of the spine, going up to the orange ray energy center, which is in the lower abdomen, coming to the yellow ray energy center, or the solar plexus energy center, then the green ray energy center, the heart chakra, then the blue ray energy center, the throat, the indigo ray energy center, which has sometimes been called the third eye, and then there's the crown chakra, which is sort of like right on top of the head, maybe a bit above it, or like right here on the top of the skull. Each of these energy centers has their own sort of quality of experience. So if we start at the bottom, at the red ray energy center, that is supposedly an element of survival, and it is a very basic, fundamental energy center. Going up to the orange ray energy center is apparently where we start to form a personal identity, and it is heavily related to person to person relationships and the dynamics we have in our relationships with individuals. Then in the yellow ray energy center, in the solar plexus, that's where we start to form a sort of social identity, where we learn how to relate to groups or as a group. Then we move up to the green ray energy center, which is, of course, the heart chakra of unconditional love, where we learn to give love without the expectation of receiving anything in return. Then we move up to the blue ray energy center, which is primarily having to do with communication. And Ra also said that it has heavily to do with honesty, both honesty in expression and honesty towards the self, and wisdom. After that, back up to the indigo ray energy center. That is the energy center of uh, we're entering a realm that is harder to describe with words. There's a very spiritual energy centers. So the third eye, the indigo ray energy center, is sort of a perspective of consciousness, of sacred energies, of unity between all beings. And then in the violet ray energy center is sort of our connection to the creator as the creator ourselves. Ra talked about these energy centers in terms of activation or overactivation or blockage. Essentially, as we go through our lives and have significant experiences, these touch on each energy center in certain ways, such as if we are experiencing something having to do heavily with group interaction, we are interacting in our yellow ray energy center, and that is helping us to activate that energy center. And so when we experience sort of dynamic tensions in various aspects of life, that helps us to activate these centers. At a certain point, this process becomes conscious, and we recognize that our experiences are actually catalyst for our spiritual growth. And then we're able to sort of pinpoint where those experiences relate to our own spiritual growth. And looking at them in terms of the energy centers is just one way to sort of place them in a certain context that makes it easy to understand. And so part of the processing of these experiences in relation to energy centers is the idea of balancing them. There is supposedly a balance in the energy centers. Once they are activated, we can balance our experiences using certain balancing exercises, things like meditation or contemplation. And this helps us to have a dynamic balance within our energy system and within our experiences and our expressions in our lives. And Ra likened this system and our beingness to that of a tone poem. Not that we are a machine or that these are mechanical, but that these are more dynamic energies that are fluid and that we flow through life in this sort of dynamic shifting balance as we experience different things and come across different challenges or opportunities in our lives. When we find ourselves in certain situations that are challenging or are providing us with difficulty, that might be as a result of blockage in these energy centers because they can be either blocked or even overactivated. For instance, there could be an overactivation of the yellow ray energy center where you feel very strongly your need to establish a social identity and gain social power. That's sort of an overactivation. Or there might be a blockage of that where you have a inclination to avoid interacting in groups and avoid adopting a social identity, or you have difficulty finding a social identity. Those would be overactivations or blockages of energy centers. And this energy essentially is moves upwards. So if you have a blockage in one of your lower energy centers, it is important to balance those lower energy centers before the energy can move on upwards into the higher and what might be considered more spiritual energy centers of like the green ray or the blue ray or the indigo. The process of balancing our energy centers is a constant process throughout our lives. It isn't something that we just do once and then we are done with that energy center. We will always come across different experiences and have different challenges in our lives that are challenging us on all levels of our being and presenting to us spiritual lessons in every context that we might find ourselves in.